Hello, everybody. Welcome back. This is Araceli Reyes, and here we are on the third episode of The Art of Wrath and Sin. I know it's been a minute. I'll explain shortly why, but I wanted to quickly jump on to just remind you guys that the original Tragic Love poetry book and the Tragic Love, Wrath, and Sin autographed physical copies are still available. You can order them directly on my Facebook page. Also, now we have two prints, episode 1 and episode 2, produced Welcome Back to the Abyss and the distorted prints, and they are available now. I'm noticing that because I am drawing live, it's very experimental, and so we're getting they're going to look very different depending on the technique or the medium that I originally used, which is not a bad thing at all. I think this is going to be a very interesting series. So as I have said, the first two prints are now available, and as we release each episode, you're going to see more and more prints. They are limited. There's going to be a series of 25 for each print in total. And then once they're sold, that's it. It's limited. There won't be any more. So definitely take advantage. You can place your orders now, or you can wait, of course, until the entire series is out and get the whole thing as a set. But again, just wanted to jump on very quickly at the beginning to remind you guys that everything is available that you see here, the two books and the two prints. And thank you again for tuning in, and let's get right into the episode. Okay, everybody, so at this point, I am going to put a disclaimer. Tragic Love and Tragic Love, Wrath, and Sin is for adults. I try to make the videos, just to, kind of make sure that they, follow guidelines. But the original works is meant for adults, and even though I'll try be a little bit more PG in these videos and in this video series, we will be talking about some topics that are a little bit difficult, and this particular episode will be a little bit more difficult. It'll be a bit darker. If at any point you feel uncomfortable or distressed, by all means pause, take a break, or just don't continue to watch altogether. If there's anything that I've taken away from any of the awful stuff that's happened to me, it's to, as best as you can, take care of your mental health. It's hard. I know it is, believe me. And in this one, we'll get right into it, but just take care of yourself. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I'm here. And the best way for us to continue to do that is to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. So some self-care, that is okay, as long as you're all right. That's the most important. So this is episode 3. And it's the third poem in the series, Set Me on Fire. Okay, so in case it wasn't already obvious, this one is going to be difficult for me. So the first thing that I need to say is, as of 5 months ago, approximately, I physically moved away from a very stressful and very traumatic, toxic situation that was, I guess, triggered, or so there was the initial incident, I'll say, and it kind of spiraled into an ongoing thing. And only recently, as I said, 5 months ago, did I finally was able to physically move from that, which sounds absolutely just unbelievable, to say the least, that it took that long. It's 2 years to the day since the initial incident happened. So for my own protection And I apologize for at times being vague in this video. But while physically, yes, I am doing so much better now, the situation is still complicated, and unfortunately, I'm not out of the woods yet. But I am safe. Physically, I am safe, and I'm doing a lot better. So, just in case you're wondering. All right, so how to begin? This incident started actually 4 months before, the worldwide situation, the pandemic. And I've told this story dozens of times to the point of self-defeat and emotional exhaustion. And unfortunately, no, I'm not going to recount what happened in detail here. But what I will say, what I can say, is something horrible, almost life altering. Well, was life altering, but I mean more permanently life altering happened to me. And even though I'm still here, I didn't come out of it the same. So the saying goes, especially now, to believe all victims. But the truth is, the victims, especially if you've been one, and if you have, I'm really sorry if you have. It's horrible. It's just horrible. But then you also know that victims rarely get the benefit of the doubt. Somehow, the aggressors always do. And it's beyond infuriating. I know from, just therapy and reading that one of the reasons society-wise that this is the case is because we're taught a fallacy. The basic one of that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. Like, supposedly in society, that's how things are and should function, right? And to discover or learn the opposite, not only does it remove the idea of, justice, goodness, and fairness, but almost in a horrifying way, it removes the idea of control. And it's horrifying because, unfortunately, that's the reality. The reality is, in fact, the opposite. Take it from me. You can do everything right, follow all instructions, all rules, behave, and say all the right things, and it can still all go wrong. I have too many examples, unfortunately. And it's so many times it's felt that no matter how hard I've tried, like, so many things haven't gone my way. And it's so painful even now. Just realizing that horrible, awful things can still happen to you no matter what you do. And it's because it it does. I wish it wasn't the case, you know. I wish that hard work did allow a person to persevere. Um, and, you know, being a good person resulted in good things happening to you. I understand why people, you know, want to give up. I know in a lot of ways, with everything that's happened, in some aspects, I've given up. You know, sometimes you don't have a choice, you know, especially when it comes to, it's horrible to say, but for survival reasons, sometimes that's had to have been, or that's just the reality. You have to worry about your own self-preservation, not at the expense of another person, but, you know, person asks you for a ride, for example, complete stranger. See, I wouldn't even stop. I wouldn't even let it get to the point where they could come anywhere near me. Like, I have had, in this case, this incident was no different. I've had things happen to me that I definitely didn't deserve. I didn't do anything to warrant it. And and here's the thing where it comes to control and the horrifying part, because you can control what you do, but you can't control what other people do. And even now, on the other side, obviously, I can't say anything to refute this. But, and like I always say at the end of my videos, and I know it's hard, even after I've just said about people, but not everybody is out to get you. There is somebody, at least one person, that loves you or at least cares about you. And a positive thing that I learned going through this situation is to, the best thing you can do is hold on to that. Hold on to those people, reach out to those people, to help you get through, you know, what seems like the throngs of neglect and awfulness, and really just some careless, horrible, even dangerous people. This incident, this situation, it affirmed a lot of negative things for me. You know, there were assumptions that I unfortunately made about just, you know, some bad people just being bad. But I also came to the realization that for a lot of people that I saw every day or that I was surrounded by, I was apparently just an inconvenience. Apparently, I was just a pain, a baby, crazy. And after initially, you know, it happened, the expectation was for me to just get over it, think positive, just move on with little to no reassurance that I was okay or that I was even safe. And especially at the time, 2 years ago, initially after it happened, um, I was given little to no time to rest or recover. And with the exception of a handful of people, I wasn't even asked if I was all right. And I wasn't. Even now, like, I'm still not fully okay. Um, and for these 2 years, with the exception of the weekends, um, I could feel it. I could feel it in my mind and in my body that I was killing myself. And a big reason why was because I didn't know how to heal from this. Um, which sounds really weird because I've been through a lot of stuff, but this was different on a whole other level, and it was unique. Um, and not only couldn't I heal, it was because I couldn't get help right away. At least not the help that I needed. And I couldn't get away from like a big reason, um, from what was causing me continued anguish. Um, and I can tell you, again, just by going through, you know, what I've gone through and the lack of healing, is that there's definitely not enough support for people who bad things happen to. Um, and society, again, it wants you to think that it's because those people somehow caused it, Oh, they must have done something because, that doesn't happen to people who are good or people who are careful. Um, and that type of thinking, not only is it not fair, it's just cruel. I used to and sometimes I still do joke about how I'm so unlucky. And it's because of, dark spells that I used to cast, or in my teen years, I made this. I'm not joking. I really did make a voodoo doll. Um, and so I say to myself sometimes that even now I'm still working off that karma. Um, but I still kind of believe that that's true. Um, I keep having these episodes, these incidences, and on the one hand, I say to myself, no, I didn't deserve that. And then on the other hand, I'm like, well, you know, I broke that mirror in my teens, and I guess it hasn't worn off. Like, I've definitely found myself in moments where I'm just like, this can't be real. How can I still be going through so much? Like, when does it stop? When does it end for me? It's like, and I get it. After going through therapy, I understand that this is just me just trying to, in the simplest way, basically try to explain the unexplainable, or try to justify, again, trying to find a way to convince myself that I still have control over what's happening to me. But the truth is I don't. And I didn't deserve what happened to me. I was literally at the time just doing my job. And getting back to relevancy here, if you're an essential worker, essential like me, this has to sound familiar to you. We're just, doing our jobs. And somehow, because the world has been and still is so awful, it's our it's our fault. And we're being forced to carry so much of the burden. And a lot of people, they think that because we can't make things better, make the situation disappear, or pretend that everything is normal or okay, that it's somehow all our fault. We get, and yeah, I am going to be speaking a bit from experience. We get yelled at, hassled, harassed. We've had things thrown at us, had punches and kicks launched at us, sometimes, yeah, landing, hitting their marks. And it's absolutely not okay. It's not fair. It's not right. And it's not enough for society to just, nickname these abusers as Karens. Society as a whole needs to change. Like, just to give a very arbitrary, and I'm not trying to give specific examples. This one will sound specific, but it's really not. But just to give an example of what real compassion, what I asked for, what I was asking for in terms of real compassion. Literally take 2 seconds, before you start, for example, yelling at that receptionist in the hospital. Try to remember you're angry because things are awful. Everything's awful. Without a question. We don't doubt that. Trust me, we get it. We know things are horrible. But you're not mad at her, at the receptionist, because she didn't make the situation awful. She is a person with thoughts and feelings, and she has a family and friends and a life that has value. And she, whether you realize it or not, is also going through the worst years of her life. And the best thing that you can do, even in that situation, is to go about your business and leave her alone. There is nothing, I'm sorry, but there's nothing really that she can do aside from her job to make the situation any better. I think she can sympathize. Like, those of us in the front lines, a lot of the time, that's what we're trying to do. Like, we get it. It's horrible. But rarely, and I wish people would, put themselves, again, unless you're an essential worker, I get it. I get it that you may not understand. But so many of us are, we're in the situation that everybody is in, and we're trying our best because we didn't necessarily have the same options. I worked throughout the entire situation, and this incident is what forced me to take some time off. And like, and even when I had to, I remember feeling horrible and feeling really guilty that I took this situation to take a break and to take time off. And it was literally because I just couldn't. Um, I had breakdowns, I had meltdowns. Um, I was pushed to the brink at some points, and it wasn't fair. And I hate that even now at the time, um, I was blaming myself, thinking that it was weakness, but really that was my mind and my body saying, no, enough. What you've been through, you haven't had a chance to really process it and really deal with it. And on top of that, and that's the thing. So on top of the situation and on top of our jobs, um, you have no idea what the other awful things we're going through on top of that. Um, this situation for so many of us just piled, it was the poisonous cherry on top of a disgusting, ridiculous smoothie that we were already trying to swallow. Like I said, the incident happened 4 months before the pandemic. So, like, it just made things so much worse. And I still had to show up. And instead of like getting support and getting help, it was just getting worse and worse. As a direct result, and even before this, I didn't talk to strangers, but after like what happened, I just shut down altogether. I don't talk to strangers, and I don't interact with people, especially if I don't have to. Um, and not just in response to the pandemic, but in response to like the incident and what happened after. Um, Things were not normal, and things haven't gone back to normal. Um, and in some ways, they're not going to, unfortunately. Um, I haven't been able, still even now, to see everybody that I wanted or need to see, but I really hope I do. I really hope I will, and I'm going to make the time to do that because I need to. Um, and so, with regards to the situation, eventually, I did get therapy. Um, I went on the waiting list, and it happened after I was on the waiting list, and after I was rejected by one therapist. We were set to start sessions. Um, and to be honest, I don't think she understood the gravity of my situation. And then when she realized, I guess, like all the ins and outs and what she was going to have to deal with, she basically told me by email that that I need to go back on the waiting list, that I need to go on a different waiting list, that unfortunately it just wasn't going to work out. And that was it was a really painful setback. Um, but I did get therapy finally. And while I recommend it, I really do. Um, know that therapy is really hard. Um, and in order for it to work, you need to put work into it, and it's hard. It's difficult. You're not always gonna hear or do things that you want to do. It's stuff that you need to do, and I know in my case, it's stuff that I need to do. Um, but I had to also face a lot of really hard things. Um, Having said that, though, now that it's over, because it's over. It ended about 2 months ago. Um, I mean, I miss it. I do. Um, and I'm scared, to be honest with you. I'm scared of what's going to happen as I continue to move forward without it. Um, Having said that, I do think that I'm going to be okay. Um, at least I hope that I'm going to be okay. Um, I hesitate because there are some things, like I said, I'm not out of the woods yet. There are some things that I'm going to have to do. I may have to retell my story of the incident a dozen more times. Um, but even then, I think I'm going to be okay. Um, I think I am going to get through this. Um, Much like whenever every other horrible thing that's happened to me, um, looking back, I really wish none of those things happened, including this. Um, Sorry, but I'm not, and I don't think I've ever been the kind of person that reflects on something horrible that's happened to me and says, well, because I survived it, it's made me stronger, and I'm so glad that I've been given this challenge. And sorry, and I don't mean to mock that. I mean, if that's how you feel personally and you sincerely believe that, um, and that brings you peace, I mean, I'm glad that it does. I'm sorry, and I don't mean to take that peace away from anybody. If that's the conclusion that you've come to, okay, that's great. Um, I don't like when people tell me that. I guess to me that that's how I should feel. Um, because I'm sorry, it's not. It certainly isn't in this situation. Um, Sorry, no, absolutely not. I don't wish what happened to me had happened. I don't wish for it to happen to anyone else, especially other the guys that it would make them stronger. No, that's messed up. No, no, no. I don't wish this on anybody. Not the event itself and not the long aftermath. Absolutely not. No one deserves to go through something like this. And I certainly didn't. If there's anything else that I could take away from this, um, it's that I've been fighting, I fought, and I will continue to fight because I matter. And I also continue to fight because other people matter. Um, and just going back to the idea of karma, um, you know, whether or not, um, you believe that there are good guys and there are bad guys. Um, and yes, you know, it's one of the first things that I basically implied or basically said, that bad guys have gotten away with anything and everything. Um, but having said that, And you could trust me on this, because as pessimistic as I started this, I've seen and experienced different outcomes. What I mean by that is, you know, something, I'm trying to find a best way to articulate this. Something always has to give. I do believe that there is an order and there is a balance of things in life, and there is. There absolutely is. Not only is it part of nature, but in a weird way, there is a balance and there is a set of order. And in life, there is a way of sometimes fixing what can't be fixed. And what I mean by that is the idea of karma, the idea of that you can't outrun the things that you've done. There are consequences, there are reactions to actions. And regardless of who or what you are, you can't, I believe strongly that you cannot just go about and do things and say awful things and expect it to work out every single time. And sometimes when you're the victim, there's a temptation to nudge things along or to force things, you know, in the attempt of justice. And believe me, I've had dark times where I wish I did have more control. And I know it's hard. I'm angry. I'm still so angry. I'm still so hurt. I do in many ways feel robbed. So there's always this temptation to nudge, to tempt fate. And in this situation, I don't know if I'll ever get to that place. But one thing that I want to reassure, because it has happened in other situations, where, you know, the bad guy, it seems that they've gotten away with it. And I've had no choice, but to go about my life, and just, wait for it to numb and just, go on, wake up the next day, do your thing, go to bed, and do it all over again the next day. And then one day, you wake up, and I've woken up, and I come across a post, or I read an article, and you find out that something has happened, and it turns out that the bad guy doesn't always win. And I know that sounds crazy, but like I said, I've seen it. And I can tell you that it is so fascinating and also satisfying. And we come back to this circle, going full circle almost, where we've learned that we don't have control, and we don't. But in that same vein, that because we don't have control, that doesn't mean that the outcome isn't the outcome that it needs to be. Um, Life has a way of putting things back into order and putting things back into balance. Like I said, um, not all the bad guys get away with it, and even when it seems that they do, um, I think that there is a price to pay. Um, and for anybody that's gone through something horrible, I hope that you do find peace more than anything and that you do find justice. And the reason why I'm saying this is because, as helpless as you might feel, as helpless as I might be feeling even now, I need to hold on to that. I need to hold on to the fact that hopefully one day everything will be as it needs to be, everything will snap into place. Um, and that the folks who have been absolutely cruel to me, um, they might never apologize, they might never show remorse, um, but I can't see them gleefully, running into the sunset after putting not just me, but putting anybody through what they did. I know from my end that I wouldn't be able to close my eyes at night knowing that I had done something like that to someone or continuously done that to someone. Um, so that in itself gives me a little bit of peace of mind and a little bit of closure that even if it feels like they've gotten away with it and have left me with all this pain and all this healing that I still have to do, that there's just no way. There's no way that life, that this balance, that this order is going to leave that unchecked, if that makes any sense. And sorry if it sounds like I was rambling. And with that, and we have also our little drawing here. Our drawing's complete. I guess the aftermath of being set on fire. I want to thank you. Because, like I said, this was a really difficult one for me. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Sorry if it was a little rambly. But thank you for being here, for bearing witness. I'm glad that this piece was in the book because it was really important. It was probably the worst thing, I'll be honest, that happened throughout the situation. That's why I came on early on, especially during the writing challenge. And I knew from the very beginning that it was going to come up because it had to. Obviously, it was such a big and impactful thing. And it was difficult. And unlike the situation itself, I'm glad that I got to write it. I'm glad that I was able to explore it again in a different forum here for all of you. So thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Now that I have marked, the event, I don't want to call it an anniversary, but, there it is. Hopefully I'll be able to be more consistent in terms of uploads. Because I'm still excited for this series. The timing just needed to be what it was, and I'm glad that it was. Even just doing this itself has given me a sense of closure. When I get to the next episode, obviously this is going to be the new print added to the series. And so that's just exciting, and I'll be able to continue on with the rest of the series. So, once again, thank you so much for tuning in. To the people who have been joining the page and the likes, thank you so much. That's, again, it's just overwhelming just to see the growing list of followers and the growing list of likes. To folks who have purchased the books, thank you so much. Your support means a lot. And with that, I'm going to say, please take care of yourselves. Like I said, I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that I'm here. And I hope we can do this again very soon. And we will. So, on that note, as I always say at the end of my videos, and I mean it in a positive way because it's positive for me, just thank you for being here. And as always, stay wicked.